Okay, so I'm here with Simon Verhoeven. Is it correct?
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, he just had a talk about how to prevent your code from aging, or how to fix it when it's gets a little bit old with the help of OpenRewrite. And it was quite an interesting talk. I think it's a great tool that many developers can use to fix various problems of their repositories. Uh, yeah, one question that I wanted to ask is that the OpenRewrite uses some recipes to make the changes, and it's always based on some assumptions that we have some starting state, and from that state we transform into some new state, desired state. But what if these assumptions are not true? What if there are some surprises?
Well, it doesn't really work on assumptions. It analyzes your code. First of all, when you start the process itself, it doesn't analyze every code base. Then a recipe itself, or recipe or recipes, dependent on your setup, those will contain visitors, and they determine when and what to do. And it's not when something unexpected happens, because something unexpected can happen. In a sense, a recipe is deterministic. The result will always be the same, and there are certain criteria when a recipe will be applied. So it's more likely that a recipe won't be applied if you thought it should have been, because the pattern that you isn't supported yet. It's more the other way around. You might think that the recipe isn't applied when you expect it would have, rather than it applying and giving a wrong result, because that's against the intent of OpenRewrite.
So for example, if there is some kind of a creative developer who's using some framework, who is basically violating a framework and using it in a way that it shouldn't be used, and that means OpenRewrite doesn't recognize that pattern, then it will just ignore it and keep it as it is, right?
Yeah, or to give a bit of a more practical example, you're aware that in previous Java release, sequence collection got added to the chain, and that introduced the get first and get last method. Now, over years, developers got very creative in the way you could get the last element of a collection, or the first element iterator up next to convert to the list, to convert it to an array, and to get the last element, and so on. Now, for getting the first element is very easy to analyze, because that is get 0. It's the first element. Now, there are a lot of different ways to define or to determine how large a collection is. So it might be that a certain pattern to determine whether you get lost to be used isn't present yet. So that's close to.
Yeah, but basically I could detect such cases, that some cases are missed, and then I could take even an existing recipe and extend it to my particular case, because, for example, I know that I have a common pattern that the size of a list is maybe put in some variable, and I can use it to detect that case, right?
There are a couple of different options. Either you use recipe itself and then do the last few fixes yourself, or you could extend the existing recipe with your cases, and then ideally contribute them back to the community if it's not very company specific, if it's generic enough. or you could just keep the recipe yourself and then run it on your code base if it's quite company specific. So it's more recipes like mentioned are only based on composition, like the Spring Boot 3.3 recipe uses Spring Boot 3.2, which is used 3.1. It's also PTF, it's all about composition. So you could do composition with your own extra recipe.
Okay. Okay. And another doubt that I have is that I may not fully trust the migration, or maybe my managers may not trust it. So the usual approach, if you do some migration manually, is that you first try it on some part of your application, maybe some limited feature, so that you can test it properly and see that it really works as before or better. Is it possible to apply OpenRewrite on some modules or parts of your application?
You can there are certain criteria you can add to your recipe to determine when they should or should not be applied. For example, the virtual heads will check is the F17, and there are other criteria you can apply to your code base. Also, given that it's deterministic, you can always just run the recipe and get a pull request based on that output. Because ideally speaking, nothing prevents you from just pushing the modernized code on a feature branch, then reviewing it as a normal modernization. There's no need to test it first blindly, of course.
Okay. And actually, I'm quite focused on things that are related to integrations and APIs, and in that area, it is quite typical that you have a lot of boilerplate code that is basically just defining some structures of data that is transferred over the API or somehow related to it. And one thing that I like to promote is to generate that code from something that's small, like from some open API specification, for example. What's your take on this? What's the relationship between code transformations like the ones that you can do with OpenRewrite and generating code?
Those are two different concerns and concepts, in my opinion, because when you generate your code from WSL file or an open API specification, you should always be using the latest. But it should like with OpenRewrite, it should be deterministic. While OpenRewrite itself is more for adapting what already exists.
Yeah. So but I could maybe also combine the two approaches.
Yeah, what you can always do is, if you have, you know what the result of your open API generation will be, you could write a recipe that would then act upon the generated files to maybe add some functions or methods or constants that you like to use yourself, or to rewrite, or say, I'm using this converter to convert my WSL to something else, and I know this result is quite close to what I want, but it's not quite there. You could then write an open rewrite recipe to do the next step in that process to get it closer to what you actually want it to be.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay. Thank you for your interview, and I hope my followers will find it useful.
Welcome.